Non-point source water pollution refers to pollution caused by diffuse sources. Most important form of non-point source pollution is the runoff from agricultural areas, and this has been a major focus of study in the field of agricultural and biological engineering. Nowadays, farmers are expanding tile drainage system in agricultural watersheds to bring down soil moisture for optimal crop growth. This sometimes worsens the downstream water quality by reducing the residence time of water on the landscape and bypassing surface improvements such as conservation tillage and riparian buffers. In a watershed, water originating from agricultural areas washes off sediments, nutrients, and other harmful chemicals which gets deposited in downstream water bodies, leading to degraded water quality. Excess nutrients in streams and lakes are known to cause problems of eutrophication, which in turn results in conditions of hypoxia or low levels of dissolved oxygen. This leads to fish kills and loss of biodiversity. One such example is the death zone reported in the Gulf of Mexico. Therefore, combating this issue of water pollution primarily requires curbing its release at the source. In other words, we have to adopt strategies that will reduce nutrient input to soils or implement best management practices which will limit nutrient and sediment transport to adjacent water bodies. Some of the major agricultural management practices to reduce non-point source water pollution from croplands include conservation tillage, crop nutrient management, pest management, and conservation buffers. Conservation tillage involves leaving the crop residue after harvest, which helps in reducing soil erosion, conserving soil moisture and nutrients, thereby reducing fertilizer input for next season. Another practice to increase the soil cover is to use cover crops. Farmers are inclined towards no-till method due to reduced labor and equipment cost. On the other hand, they prefer conventional tillage in order to avoid weeds and pests. High levels of nutrients in streams can cause excess growth of algae and other aquatic plants, and some forms such as ammonia are known to be toxic to aquatic life. Efficient nutrient management based on crop requirements and availability of soil nutrients can prove helpful to reduce this risk. It is necessary to adopt integrated pest management approaches that strives for maximum use of naturally occurring and non-chemical pest control techniques. Conservation buffers provide an excellent opportunity to help control pollutant transport. Riparian buffers located adjacent to streams are rich in shrubs and trees which intercepts harmful chemical from draining into the streams. Grassed waterways help protect against erosion and filter sediments and pollutants. Buffer strips located at the edge of fields slows the water velocity, simultaneously allowing absorption and uptake of pollutants and settling of sediments. Even though all the conservation practices have their advantages, most of the farmers carry out practices that they are comfortable with and are reluctant to minimize the fertilizer and pesticide application in order to reduce production risk. Lack of proper awareness about environmental issues, economic constraints, and traditional farming practices leads to a state of ethical dilemma among farmers. Moving towards environmentally sustainable agriculture requires active participation of farmers, laborers, policymakers, researchers, retailers, and consumers. It requires a systems perspective, and the farmers should be involved in every step of decision making, allowing them to comprehend consequences of farming practices on both human communities and the environment.
We know a lot about how effective conservation practices are at the field scale, where they are normally implemented, and they work really well at the field scale. However, if we expect any significant improvement at the watershed scale, we need to implement a whole lot of them in a significant proportion of a watershed. And that is typically an issue. Why it has not been done at the watershed scale? There are many complex reasons behind that. One reason is the economic reason. For example, some practices, including filter strips and wetlands, take the land away from agricultural production. So there has to be a strong economic reason to implement those practices. Other reasons are social reasons. For example, how we make decisions and what can be done to impact how we make decisions so that our decisions are optimal for protecting both agricultural production and water quality. And it is a very complex issue.